Keep or sell Gabriel? Is Trent essential? And who do we captain? Mo Salah or Cole Palmer? These are the final decisions in my Game Week 16 team selection. And we're going to go through all of that in today's video. So as always, if you're looking forward to it, make sure you do drop a like, aiming for 200 on this video. And of course, make sure you do smash that subscribe button. Enough waffling. Let's get into today's video. So first up, just a super quick recap on Game Week 15, because of course we did have those games on Monday night. So ended up scoring 70 points and a decent green arrow, which I am really happy about. Of course, the Liverpool-Everton game being postponed, captaincy moved to Cole Palmer, which end of the day worked out really well. And the faith kept in the Brentford pair of Mbeumo and Vissa delivered 20 points combined between the two. And the transfer that I made of Garnacho to Semenyo was only made because of that Liverpool game being postponed, and I was scared I was going to end up with 10 players. And to be honest with you, I may as well have done with Semenyo's 2-pointers. So 70 points, really happy with the week. However, it's been brilliant off the back of the wildcard. 6 green arrows in the last 7 game weeks. But you know when your team just feels like it is reaching the end of the team? I feel like we are having problems creep up each and every week. And this team is starting to expire, unfortunately. So, of course, we got the warning on Gabriel. For those that don't know in terms of the yellow flag, obviously missed the last few games. We have had a few posts regarding Gabriel suggest that he could be back for the Everton game, but there's still no understanding on whether he has actually got a hamstring injury, whether it was concussion. So hopefully we'll get some information Saturday morning, because of course the Arsenal game is at 3 PM and the deadline is at 1:30. So if you're in a position regarding Gabriel, if you can, I would just try and wait Saturday morning and see if we get some sort of team leaks before the 1:30 PM UK time deadline. Outside of Gabriel, which a lot of us have got problems with, Dalot, not great. I don't know whether we're going to get any clean sheets going forward with Man United. And at his price point, I need to move him on. So that is going to be a transfer that's going to need to be made. And of course, I also need to address the Brentford situation, because while Bryan Mbeumo and Vissa have terrible fixtures, I need to understand whether actually Chelsea away is not a bad fixture to play one of these players. And the problem with Game Week 16, there are so many amazing fixtures that we need to target. And we're going to look at those right now, because I'm a little bit scared that there's a certain Alexander Isak that I'm not going to own this week. So taking a look at the Game Week 16 matches, this has been a bit of a common theme on these team selection videos. Shout out to Rob T FPL for the graphic. These are basically looking at the projected goals and clean sheet odds in the betting markets for Game Week 16 in isolation. And as I mentioned, I think it's always great to have a personal opinion on these games, so do not be taking this as gospel. But at the same time, it's always very interesting to see where people are putting their money in the games. And this always gives a bit of an indication on what direction they are going to go in. So just quickly running through the games. Arsenal versus Everton, as you can see, 2.45 projected goals in that game. So being a Saka owner, fantastic. That in itself, I think, is enough. I don't feel compelled to go for another Arsenal attacker. The problem, clean sheet odds at 52%. So if you're like me with just Gabriel, you are praying that he plays in this team, because if he doesn't feature, those managers that have maybe got the double up of Raya in goal as well are going to be the ones that really do capitalise if this sort of thing happens. For me, it's a case of if we get no news on Gabriel, I think I'm just going to keep. If we get news that he isn't with the squad, then I could be tempted to sell, but I'll go through those plans later on in this video. Liverpool-Fulham, another really big fixture, 2.55 projected goals for Liverpool. So again, if you own Mo Salah, captaincy feels very tempting in that game. And in terms of the clean sheet odds, another team that I feel a little bit scared not to have any defensive ownership at 40% clean sheet. Alisson Becker's back at 5.4 million. I don't mind that if you want to bring in a goalkeeper transfer. But of course, the real one is going to be Trent at 7 million that a lot of us are looking to try to get to. And we'll talk about whether he is going to be part of my plans. Newcastle, another game with over 2 projected goals, 2.6. Now again, I'm in a position right now where I can't really get to both Trent and Alexander Isak. So I need to decide whether I should be prioritising Trent or Isak into my team. And as you saw previously with my squad, my defence has real problems. So even though there is a real temptation to bring in a Newcastle attacker for this unbelievable fixture, I think unfortunately I'm going to have to address the defensive issues and maybe avoid this Newcastle attack. But if you have defenders, attackers, you're looking great this week. In terms of Wolves Ipswich, if you have Cunha, I know it's been problematic over the last few weeks, but I think you keep, you play for the next 2, and then you sell in game week 18. Same applies for Aït-Nouri if you do own. Forest Aston Villa, not really much to talk about there. Looks like a possible score draw based on these odds. Brighton Crystal Palace, again, if you own João Pedro, you start him. But again, Palace have been good defensively. I'm not expecting lots of goals in that game. City United. Now, 2.3 projected goals for Man City. If you own Erling Haaland, of course, I think you've got to play him. But again, that is a very specific situation in that fixture. For me, being a Dalot owner, there is not really any value trying to keep him and play him for those clean sheet odds. Finally, the last few games, because these are actually quite considerable on the Sunday. Chelsea versus Brentford. We're talking about captaincy right now, and you can take your pick. Cole Palmer in a game that has 2.75 projected goals, that's great. And Brentford away from home have just been woeful. Liverpool, as we mentioned, 2.55. So you can really paint your own narrative here, who you want to captain. But if you have Chelsea attackers, amazing. If you have Chelsea defenders, good. But this is probably one of those that I would argue I think Brentford attackers could do well in. They create big chances, and Chelsea's defence still are suspect. And I do think Brentford will score in that game personally. Southampton Spurs, I am not big on Spurs right now, and playing Thursday night against Southampton on the weekend on Sunday, I think that's a bad combination. We've seen enough data now to suggest that Spurs off the back of Thursday games do not do well at all. I think it could be an upset there once again. And then, of course, Bournemouth, West Ham. I'm a Semenyo owner. I already want to sell him, but looking at the projected goals right now, I'm happy to keep Semenyo, try and start him for one more week and then reassess. But those are the projected goals and clean sheets. As you can see, there is a lot of goals projected to happen this weekend and some potential clean sheets. You do want to try and buy into those teams for this specific game week. So moving into my game week 16 team selection, and as you can see here, one of my planned transfers. Now, I haven't actually made a transfer yet. There was no point with any potential price changes. And as I said, if I can hold off until Saturday morning to see if we can get any Arsenal information, that is the plan. Because firstly, goalkeepers is a no-brainer for me. Sells at home against Aston Villa trumps Fabianski away against Bournemouth. Have I been tempted to maybe bring in Alisson at a cheaper price? Yes, but I just can't also bring myself to make a goalkeeper transfer. So, hence why the planned transfer is to do Dalot to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, I don't think Trent is worth the 7 million. I'm going to be honest with you. I do not think he is worth the 7 million. I do think Virgil van Dijk is a good alternative, but with my team right now, I can't really find a logical way, spoiler alert, to get Alexander Isak and Trent into my team. I could go for someone like a Van Dijk in defence and then look to pivot towards Alexander Isak as part of a -4, but I don't really want to take a points hit. So if I'm going to rule out Isak, then I have to go Trent. Get the most expensive defender that will allow me to use him as a cash cow if he proves not to be good value. And I think with these fixtures coming up, he could actually offer fantastic value. So that is the plan, Dalot to Trent, to really help this defence. Because if Gabriel plays amazing, we got him at home against Everton, and then we got Aït-Nouri at home against Ipswich. Happy days. The one thing I will caveat with this and why I want to wait till Saturday morning, is because if we get news that Gabriel hasn't travelled with the squad, there might be a temptation actually to do 2 defensive moves, bring in Trent possibly, and then sell Gabriel maybe to someone like a Saliba or a Timber. That is also a consideration, but right now we're going off the premise that Gabriel does start. If that is the case, I think Dalot to Trent just makes a lot of sense for my team, because defensively it is just all over the place right now. And even though I want to be tempted to bring those attackers in, I've got to address the problems in the team before anything else, and that is going to be Trent in to hopefully paper over some of these cracks. Moving into my game week 16 midfielders, and as you can see, the plan right now is not to make a transfer in this midfield. Now, I didn't mention in terms of Trent that I actually do need to make a second transfer to free up the funds to bring in Trent. So there will be a move in the forward line, so stick around for that. But in terms of the midfielders, so Saka, Salah, Palmer, there's just no point me talking about those in these kind of transfer situations, because there's no world that I'm selling these until we see a potential injury or some reason why they are not good FPL value. But right now, these 3 are just the holy grail in the game, and I will be keeping on to those as long as I can. Semenyo at home against West Ham. Now, we spoke about this. Could I possibly downgrade Semenyo to someone like an Enzo this week, where there's a lot of bandwagon behaviour going? Yes, I could, but 2 projected goals, Semenyo guaranteed game time. Yes, I think he is massively overrated as an FPL option, and don't ask me why I ended up panicking and bringing him into my team. But I just don't think it is an absolute obvious sell for me this week. I'm more than happy to keep Semenyo in the team. Is he that much worse or better than Enzo? I think the answer is going to be no. I think they're pretty equal this week. And then we got Bryan Mbeumo away against Chelsea, a player that a lot of people are selling in order to fund the Trent move or maybe Alexander Isak move. For me, I don't want to sell Mbeumo unless there is an absolute clear replacement. We spoke about this in the transfer plans video. I could easily go to Gordon, and that is a consideration. I haven't ruled out Anthony Gordon yet to cover me off of that Newcastle attack, and that is a way of me actually freeing up the funds, doing Dalot to Trent, and then downgrading Bryan Mbeumo to Anthony Gordon. That is a consideration, but I don't know whether I actually love Anthony Gordon as an option. I think I'm tempted by him because of the fixture in isolation at home against Leicester, but if that doesn't actually result in goals for Gordon, then I think I'm stuck with a player that I don't actually love. Last season I loved him. This season, playing off the right at times, no certainty of his positioning. That is a big red flag for me when I'm looking to bring in a player that is priced 7.2 million. So by that, I just think keeping Bryan Mbeumo is actually okay. Yes, Chelsea rest their whole first team in that Conference League game, but away against Chelsea, who are always going to give up chances, they just always do. We saw that against Spurs. We've seen that in previous games against Southampton, for example. And Brentford are the masters of creating big chances and haven't lost at Stamford Bridge in the last 4 league matches. So with all that said, I think Bryan Mbeumo, if there's no obvious move for you to go to, just keep. And that is what I am planning to do this game week. And I'm really happy with this midfield if I end up sticking with it. So finally, taking a look at my game week 16 forwards. And as you can see, the planned transfer in order to fund the move to Trent will be downgrading Vissa to Raul Jimenez. I cannot believe I'm saying those words because I had Raul, I jumped off. I had Muniz, I jumped off. I just feel like I am getting it all wrong with these Fulham attackers. And it just doesn't really feel right going back to Raul Jimenez. But I need to free up the move. And I'm sticking with this budget forward lineup for now. And Raul makes a lot of sense because in game week 17 at home against Southampton is fantastic. And he's a player that I'm more than happy to bench and play in these favourable home games. He's been frustrating. I'm sure he will really frustrate me going forward, but it just makes a lot of sense for me and my team going forward. He rotates really well with the rest of the team. And I don't love bringing in a transfer that I'm just going to bench this week because all it takes is an injury against Liverpool and suddenly I've wasted a transfer on a player that isn't actually going to play. So I need to get a little bit lucky with this one, but I do like the move for my team long term. I'm trying to be a sensible manager here rather than just going off vibes and trying to bring in Alexander Isak and ripping up my team. So as you can tell, I am stressing at the thought of not having a Newcastle attacker, and I could just resolve it by doing Trent down to Van Dijk or Robertson, doing Mbeumo down to Enzo, and then upgrading Vissa to Alexander Isak for a -4. But I just think that -4 in the back of my mind is more than we make it out to be. And I think that could be a problem for my team. So as of right now, the plan is Dalot to Trent, Vissa down to Raul. I love the front two. Cunha, I see people panicking about. Yes, he is a bit of a vibes player. Yes, he is one of those that scores worldies. But Ipswich at home, I think, is a great fixture for Wolves. And they are desperate for a win. Pedro, a little bit more disappointed, to be honest with you. I haven't seen what other managers have seen. I kind of jumped on him just to try and capitalise on price rises. Haven't really had it. Palace at home. That looks even more difficult than what it was a few weeks ago because Glasner's actually get them defensively sound now. So I think Pedro could be a player on the chopping block later down the line, but that is the plan. However, as I mentioned, there are so many different variations that we can go for with this team, and I will obviously be covering that off in the deadline live stream, so make sure you check that out Saturday morning. Let's take a look at captaincy to finalise this video. So game week 16 captaincy, I think is going to be one of the toughest we have had this season. I spoke about the Newcastle game. We could easily go to Alexander Isak, no problem whatsoever. We've spoken about, obviously, the Man City game. People might go for Erling Haaland. But the clear ones are Chelsea against Brentford, Liverpool at home against Fulham, and Arsenal at home against Everton. So I cannot put my captain on Saka. The main reason being is effective ownership. I know for a fact Mo Salah is going to be over 100% owned and Cole Palmer is going to be over 100% owned. So just going for Bukayo Saka, you are then basically just praying 2 players in your team blank. And you have to be so certain that Saka is the man to go for. I think he could do really well, but I just can't bring myself putting the captaincy on him. So it comes down for my team for Cole Palmer versus Mo Salah. So the argument for Cole Palmer is that obviously he had the monster haul in game week 15, completely rested midweek. Basically, the whole Chelsea team were rested because they just sent off all the young'uns against Astana. And against a Brentford team that away from home are really, really poor. The worst in the league, or one of the worst. So a lot of things do weigh up towards Cole Palmer, but I do think Brentford as a team are good. I know they've been poor away from home, but I do think they're a good team away from home in terms of I trust Thomas Frank to at least make it a competitive game. Whether that competitive means 5-2 Chelsea is the thing that we need to decide. In terms of Mo Salah, it's just Mo Salah. Obviously played midweek. Liverpool probably have a trickier game against Fulham, but with no Anderson and Bassi suspended, they are not going to have their starting centre-backs in that Fulham back line to basically lead it away at Anfield. And Mo Salah for me has just been an ever-present guy who is just delivering each and every week. And I just feel a bit more safe going for Mo Salah over Cole Palmer. I would argue that if any game has a chance of being 5-3, it is going to be the Chelsea game. And obviously in that case, Cole Palmer is a very tempting one. And it's worth noting, I literally am like 51% Salah, 49 Cole Palmer. So I can't sit here and say to you that I might not change it closer to the deadline. But as of right now, I just feel like Salah is the one that I want to go for. I'm more than happy with that. But could I move to Cole Palmer? Yes, there is a temptation. Let me know who you're going for in the comment section. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 16 team selection video. As you can see, I'm not completely locked in on my transfers just because of that yellow flag on Gabriel. We need to get a bit of an understanding what is going on there. So I most likely will be making my transfers Saturday morning before that 1:30 p.m. UK time deadline. And lucky for you, I will be live that morning. So as always, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to stick around over this busy festive period. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you do drop a like, always appreciated. Any questions, please put them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you in tomorrow's Deadline Live. Cheers.